Seventh and final round of the 2022 DTRA UK Flat Track Nationals comes from the Greenfield dirt track in Lincolnshire, our second visit this season, but the first on the oval. The title race itself has already been wrapped up by Gary Birtwistle, so something of an end-of-season party for him, but there'll be no shortage of challengers to his unbeaten run in what is the biggest and best field of this campaign. Toby Hales makes his first appearance of the season. Rob Meer is back in action for the first time since Peterborough. There are 4 riders over from the Netherlands, and the Wizard, Jeffrey Carver, is a special guest wildcard from the USA. The knockout format got underway with qualifying earlier on to get down to this afternoon's 36-rider field, so 12 already eliminated, and that will shrink further to 24 for the semi-finals, and then the 12 riders who make it to the grand final. As far as the championship is concerned, second place is still in play, mathematically speaking, but only if Conrad Little can secure his first win. Little and Paul Young will contest the final step on the 2022 podium, just a point separating them arriving in Greenfield, but dropped round regulations, giving Young a net 6-point lead. So the number 1 plate will be going to Gary Birtwistle in the winter, and he lines up on the pole for Heat 1, having finished top in qualifying impressively, managed to head Jeffrey Carver by over 0.3 of a second, and that was the fastest recorded lap yet here at the Greenfield Oval. This will be his first outing then since claiming that first national title at Redcar last month, the number 11, Gary Birtwistle. Alongside him off gate 2, the number 171, Conrad Little, currently third in the championship standings. He's been knocking on the door of that first podium, 2 4th places in the Amman Valley, the best of his results yet. He was 6th in qualifying this afternoon. Rob Meer making his return to the championship, only his second appearance of 2022. He was 5th back in round 2 at Peterborough, 7th in qualifying earlier on, riding the number 500. Completing the front row of the grid, the number 11, Charlie Kelly. He was 12th in qualifying. From the second row, we've got Jesse Moore, Gilles Leanknecht, William Smith and Simon Bird. The third row of the grid, Fergus Bluff, Danny Lonsdale, Rob Mearsman and Richard Japin, the last of the qualifiers in 36th place. Top 4 will go direct to today's semi-final stages. The rest will go to the eliminators for round 1, heats 4 and 5. And as far as qualifiers, the favourites clearly on the front row of the grid, but don't rule out the likes of Gilles Leanknecht, of course an unknown quantity, coming in as a wildcard, and also Fergus Bluff, who had a disappointing qualifying, has generally been closer up to the front. We're underway with the 7th and final round in 2022, and it's Conrad Little with the whole shot. The number 171, the first to show, and now Rob Meer comes around the outside of Gary Birtwistle, and the 2022 champion is going backwards here, out of shape around the top bend, and Simon Bird has popped through from the second row of the grid and done a great job to briefly show in 3rd position. He's dropped back to 4th now. Birtwistle, the pursuit begins for him, and it's a duel now for the last of those transfer spots to the semi-finals between Simon Bird and Charlie Kelly. Kelly coming through around the outside into turn 3, but overcooks it on the top bend. That allows Simon Bird to come back through. So that all-important 4th position, hotly contested here, and it's close up at the head of the field as well. It is Conrad Little who leads the way. Rob Meer looking to the inside though, coming off the pits turn. Now switches up to the outside at the start of another lap. That allows the door open for Gary Birtwistle to pull alongside. Rob Meer just about carries his momentum through and slingshots down the inside of Conrad Little into the top bend for the race lead. Gary Birtwistle tried to go around the outside of Little. They were almost 3 abreast at one stage, and Birtwistle still having to give best for the moment at least to both Rob Meer and Conrad Little. Gets his back tyre now in the dirt to move alongside Little and through into 2nd place, but he's still got to get through on Rob Meer. Rob Meer will try and square off turn 4 here, make a long straight of it. They are encountering lap traffic, but that's not going to disturb them and doesn't upset Gary Birtwistle, that's for sure. He gets all the way around the outside of Rob Meer, and with only 2 turns to go, has performed miracles here to come from 4th to 1st. Gary Birtwistle in his first race as champion has managed to perform some exploits there that will be worthy of a highlights reel in and of themselves. Great start to proceedings here this afternoon. Gary Birtwistle not getting off to the best of starts and then tussling his way through. Conrad Little succumbing first to Rob Meer and then to Birtwistle, and the number 11 then coming through to take an impressive race victory. Just over a second separating the top 3 in the end. Meanwhile, Charlie Kelly recovering 4th position from Simon Bird, the last of those direct transfer spots to the semi-final stages. The rest will have to go again in heats 4 and 5.
American Jeffrey Carver Jr. 75 is Paul Young. 9.99 is Jay Eady. 30 is Alan
On now to heat number 2 and a first appearance with the DTRA for Jeffrey Carver, riding his familiar number 23. Carver, 3 times a winner in the Premier Class of American flat track, so certainly a great benchmark for the British riders to compare themselves to a man who was 4th overall in the US just 3 years ago. He'll have the pole here, top seed to this race, 2nd in qualifying. Alongside him, due off gate number 2, will be the number 75, Paul Young, currently 4th in the championship, and a direct rival to Conrad Little, who put in a good ride last time out, so Young will also be hoping to book safe passage to the semi-final stages here to keep up his pursuit for 3rd overall. Gate number 3, just sorting themselves out. It should be Jake Eady, who was 8th in qualifying, the number 999, and Alan Birtwistle should be going off the outside gate. He was only 11th earlier on, and I'm sure he'll be expecting better than that as this afternoon goes on. Direct rivals for 10th in the championship, Freddie Trott Jr. and Jordan Miller have both qualified on the inside of the 2nd row. Watch out as well for 2 wildcard riders, Menno van Meer, the World Championship regular, and Bert Versteiner, who's coming from the back row of the grid. Starting Marshall has them settled, but problems on the line for Paul Young. The light sequence was already underway, and Young therefore has been left on the line, and that is disastrous for him in terms of his pursuit of a place in the top 4 and direct transfer to the semis. Hopes for that already over. It's Jeffrey Carver finding his way through to the front. Close pursuit being kept up on the opening lap by Jake Eady. It was Eady actually who took the whole shot, but Carver drilling his move down the inside going into turn 3. Birtwistle was with them momentarily, but he's had a scrappy start to this one, and he's now coming under pressure from the number 19 of Jordan Miller. Miller, though, gets out of shape, bottled up behind Birtwistle, who again locked up there on turns 3 and 4, and Miller now has dropped down into 5th position. That's something of a surprise. Moving through and up into 4th place here is the number 147 of Gareth Williamson. Williamson, though, himself now wide on the top turn, and look how close the riders are behind him. The wild card there, Menno van Meer on the number 188, now comes through on Williamson on the inside. Freddie Trott Jr. trying to go the long way round. He's given up on that and tries now to switch back to the inside line. Great racing going on right the way through the field. Remember, every position is vital in terms of grid positions for those eliminators, even if you can't make the top 4 and to earn a place in the semi-final stages. Those top 4 do look fairly settled at this stage of the race as Freddie Trott Jr. now gets around the outside of Menno van Meer, tries to chase down Gareth Williamson for best of the rest in 5th. That's where the action is in the latter stages. We're in now to the final lap with Jeffrey Carver a country mile clear up at the head of the field. Jake Eady, a relative newcomer, remember, to DTRA flat track, will certainly be learning the ropes on the tail of one of the fastest men on 2 wheels. 3rd position goes the way of Alan Birtwistle, and the last of those direct transfer spots eventually to Jordan Miller. Well, Miller certainly had to work for his place in the semis because Gareth Williamson popped through. Miller ran wide coming off the top turn, trying to get alongside Alan Birtwistle. Scrappy start to that race from the number 30, the former DTRA UK flat track national champion. But Birtwistle does manage to recover his composure and sail on for a comfortable 3rd position. Well clear in the end of Jordan Miller, the last of those qualifiers. Heat 3 next up, and a first appearance of the season for Toby Hales, the 2018 and 2021 champion, bringing the number 1 plate back into service. Of course, he's taken a sabbatical from the championship in 2022, but couldn't resist his home round as a wildcard. He's probably done more laps around here than anyone else. Hales, 2nd seed to this race, 4th in the qualifiers. It is Jack Bell, who was 3rd in qualifying. He goes off the pole here for the 3rd race of the day. Neil McQueen and Tim Gregg, back from World Championship duty, completes the front row of the grid. Row 2 with Kevin Kennedy, Mark Richardson, Mike Goodfellow and Stephen Gurnhill, competitive 2nd row. Faulkner, Adams, Seddon and Pugh rounding out your lineup. Just waiting for Neil McQueen to settle off gate number 3. The starting marshal now begins the countdown, and the light procedure underway, and Toby Hales with a little bit of movement. He was creeping before the lights went out, Neil McQueen as well, but it was Hales who got something of a jump start there. The race has been allowed to continue somewhat surprisingly, and Hales has got a massive head start over Jack Bell. The 2 young guns going head to head up at the front of the field. It's 3 abreast in the battle for 5th position further back. Mark Richardson now coming through on Kevin Kennedy. Neil McQueen did a good cutback coming off turn 2 to cover off the attack of Kevin Kennedy, and he's now set sail in 3rd position. And Tim Gregg came around the outside of Kennedy and through for 4th. It is those top 4 qualification places that are all important, and while Mark Richardson behind and Kevin Kennedy scrap it out for 5th position, that's allowing Tim Gregg to stretch his lead from 4th place He's trying to go after Neil McQueen but making no impression. Meanwhile, up at the head of the field, Jack Bell there locking up coming off turn 4, and Toby Hales now into a comfortable lead. A welcome return to the championship for Toby Hales, and as I said previously, two of the young guns of DTRA competition. Toby Hales came up through the youth ranks and was champion at youth level in 2015. Jack Bell more recently youth champion in 2019, already making great progress. He finished up on the podium at the end of 2021. Still close at the front of the field, Tim Gregg beginning to reel in the number 7, Neil McQueen, for third position as well. Of course, this is all good in terms of starting position choices come the semi-final stages. Toby Hales with a rough ride there coming off turn number 2. Jack Bell's going to send it in wider around the pits turn for the final time. Hales locks it up coming off the final bend. Drag race down to the line. It gets close in the run to the finish, and that action really came from nowhere because Toby Hales looked to have the race settled, and according to the timing screens, Jack Bell has nicked it. Bell nicks it in the run down to the line by just 0.02 of a second. Brilliant finish to heat number 3. This opening round has already provided some great racing. Jack Bell wins the third race of the day then ahead of the returning Toby Hales, straight through to the semi-finals for the reigning champion. Neil McQueen gets third and holds on ahead of Tim Gregg. Battle for best of the rest eventually won by Kevin Kennedy, but he and Mark Richardson, as well as the rest of that field, will have to go again in the eliminators, coming up in just a couple of moments' time. So our first 12 semi-finalists are already decided. The top 6 from each of the next 2 races will join them. The bottom 6 will be eliminated in positions 25 to 36 in the meeting classification. So the first of our knockout races coming up, heat number 4, and 2 big stories in this one. Paul Young, after mechanical problems on the line in heat number 2, is going to have to make that top 6 from the back row of the grid in his second ride of the day. Young, remember, hasn't been out of the top 7 in any of his appearances in 2022. He's got a really good chance of a place on the end of season rostrum, but his direct rival Conrad Little is already through to the semi-final stages, so Young must progress from this one, heat number 4. The other big story, the fact that we've got 2 wildcards in the elimination phase. Menno van Meer going off the front row of the grid on the number 188, and Gilles Linknecht on the inside of the second row, the number 278, finished 7th in his opening ride, heat number 1. Kevin Kennedy with the pole finished as high as 5th in heat number 3, and he'll be the favourite to progress from this one. Starting marshal moves away. Looks as though we're ready to go now. Heat number 4, the first of our eliminators. Poor start off gate number 2 from Menno van Meer. It's Kevin Kennedy who is the first to show. Watch for the outside run for Freddie Trott. He was 7th in his opening ride. He powers through to hit the front at the second attempt. Heat number 4 now is a battle in the mid-pack. Kevin Kennedy leading Menno van Meer, who goes the long way around the outside here for second position. Paul Young is already up into 6th, challenging now for a place in the top 5. Oh, big moment there for Gilles Linknecht. Linknecht goes down and from a qualification position as well. Paul Young very nearly caught up in that, locked up in avoiding action, and then had to work hard to recover, but stays in front of Scott Faulkner and Mike Goodfellow, who are now tussling it out for the 6th and final transfer spot to the semi-final stages. It is Mike Goodfellow who goes around the outside now of Faulkner. Faulkner gets back alongside into the top turn. They've got to be careful here not to get bunched up behind Paul Young, recovering after his momentary loss of pace earlier on in this race. Young, in turn, recovering on the tail of current 4th position man Jesse Moore, and he is bringing both Scott Faulkner and Mike Goodfellow with him. Here goes Young with the attack for 4th position. Slides gracefully down the inside into turn number 3. He's got his wheels in line earlier now, coming off turn 4. Moore is going to be relegated back into 5th position. 6th place for the moment is with Mike Goodfellow on the outside. Big lock up there coming off turn 2 from Scott Faulkner, but still he's able to keep himself in contention for a top 6 spot. There are 3 abreast coming around turns 3 and 4. Moore has very much dropped back into the path of Mike Goodfellow and Scott Faulkner, so there are 3 riders bunched up here contesting 2 transfer spots to the semi-finals, and I think it's going to be Scott Faulkner who's going to be the odd man to miss out here unless he can pull off something very special around the final 2 turns. Mike Goodfellow with a good run almost alongside Jesse Moore. Moore blocks him out and Scott Faulkner will miss out. Scott Faulkner in 7th position, the first of the eliminated riders from heat number 4. Mike Fisher, Rob Meersman, Gilles Linknecht after his fall join him on the sidelines and among the spectators for the semi-final stages. Freddie Trott Jr. with a comfortable race victory. Menno van Meer, Kevin Kennedy, Paul Young, Jesse Moore and ultimately Mike Goodfellow, after a race-long scrap, progress to the semi-finals. So on to track for the second of our round 1 eliminator races, Heat 5. And again, another couple of big names lining up in this one. Mark Richardson, 8th in the championship and 3 times a grand finalist in 2022. Looking to add to that tally, he's got to make it through from the eliminator Heat 5. He was only 6th in his opening ride, Heat 3. Fergus Bluff, after an underwhelming qualifying that left him down in P25, could only recover to 9th position in Heat 1, so he's got to go from the middle row here. Look at the lineup in full. It's Gareth Williamson and Simon Bird, both finished 5th position in their opening outings on the inside of the front row. Mark Richardson, we've just been talking about, goes off gate number 3 with Stephen Gurnhill on the outside of him. Bart Versteiner goes off the second row, alongside him William Smith, Danny Williams and Fergus Bluff. And from the back row, Sky Adams, who finished 10th in her opening ride, Sean Seddon, Pete Marshall and Danny Lonsdale. Just waiting for Fergus Bluff to get his machine started by the looks of it and pull into position on the outside of the second row. He is now beginning to settle in. Some confusion about the starting positions alongside him as William Smith just gets into place, and that now allows Danny Williams to slot in off at gate number 3 on the second row. So we're all into position now. Nerves, no doubt, at their high point. Top 6 to the semi-finals, the remainder eliminated as the light goes out for heat number 5. Good jump from Mark Richardson. He pulls alongside Simon Bird and goes around the outside of him on turns 1 and 2 to hit the front. Danny Williams goes down on the first 2 turns. That will rule him out of contention. He pulls off and onto the infield. Bird, in the meanwhile, has dropped back into 3rd position. Gareth Williamson is the next to try and attack. The pole sitter for this race, already relegated down into 4th place. Fergus Bluff, meanwhile, has got up into the top 6 spots. So again, despite an underwhelming qualifying, just as we had in Redcar for him last time out, he is able to make progress come races as he gets around the outside now of the number 129 William Smith. That will move him up into 5th place. Side-by-side action here for 3rd position. Simon Bird against the recovering Gareth Williamson. Didn't make the best of jumps, pushed back down to 4th position. Bird did make the initial start, but he's now under pressure for that 3rd place. Fergus Bluff, meanwhile, continuing his attack. William Smith just needs to defend the last of those automatic transfer spots in 6th position. Behind him, Bart Versteiner looks as though he is going to be the man to miss out as Smith now comes back at Fergus Bluff. Bluff preferring the mid-track line, but he is leaving himself vulnerable to attack from behind, and Smith has now come back through for 5th position. And Fergus Bluff is going to have his hands full from behind by the looks of things. He cuts back to the inside though, coming off turn 2, and back onto the racing line to make the pass. And now the action once again is for 6th position. So as close as you like for the last of these transfer spots. Still Simon Bird under pressure from Gareth Williamson for 3rd place. Race leaders checked out. It is going to be Mark Richardson who will win heat number 5, and Stephen Gurnhill also looking very, very comfortable indeed in 2nd position. But again, it's level pegging coming across the line for 6th position. Couldn't have been much closer than that. I think Bart Versteiner just missing out with William Smith holding on, but Smith at one stage there got back up into 5th position ahead of Fergus Bluff. When he was passed by Bluff, that's when he came under pressure. Bart Versteiner just missing out. Sky Adams, Danny Lonsdale, Pete Marshall, Sean Seddon and Danny Williams will join him from the stands to watch the semi-final stages. Mark Richardson, Stephen Gurnhill, Simon Bird holding on ahead of Gareth Williamson, Fergus Bluff providing action throughout, and William Smith by just a 1/10 of a second does enough ahead of Bart Versteiner to book his place in the semi-final stages. 48 riders were whittled down to 36 in qualifying. Only 24 now remain, split over 2 semi-finals. The top 5 from each will go to today's grand final. The top 2 on the front row, 3rd and 4th on the second row, and 5th on the back row. Last place in each of the next 2 races will be put on the sidelines by elimination. We've got Jack Bell, the winner of Heat 3, going off the pole here. Alongside him, 2nd place finishers, first time out, Jake Eady and Rob Meir. Alan Birtwhistle squeezed onto the front row of the grid with 3rd in Heat 2. 3rd in Heat 1 was Conrad Little. He's on the inside of the second row. Alongside him, Tim Gregg, who finished 4th in his opening ride, Heat 3. 6 of the riders who made it through from the eliminators join them on the grid here for semi-final number 1. Start marshal moves away. Top 5, all important. Great start off the outside from Alan Birtwistle. He's joined at the first turn by Jack Bell. Bell moves mid-track to try and block out Birtwistle, and that allows Jake Eadie through on the inside, but Eadie locks it up, and it's Birtwistle who pulls clear at the head of the field. Birtwistle then challenged by Jack Bell on the top turn, and Bell recovers the race lead. Freddie Trott Jr. sent wide on turns 3 and 4, so he's got it all on now if he wants a top 5 finish as Conrad Little comes through up the inside line. That's Rob Meir in the middle of a 3 abreast situation coming off turn 2. Great racing here. Jake Eadie making his way back through into second position, but he then overcooks it on the top end, and Freddie Trott Jr. goes from 4th to 2nd, and Rob Meir's now through on Eadie, and Jack Bell's fallen on the entry to turn 1, and the yellow flags are out, but that's going to rule Jack Bell out of automatic transfer. He's got to avoid last position here, and if he can get into the top 11, he will have the chance to go again in the last chance qualifier, but he's got a lot of ground to try and recover. Birtwistle leaving the door wide open going around turns 1 and 2. Rob Meir is through on him for 3rd position. Now battles around the outside of Conrad Little. This, remember, is the race for 2nd place. Well, it has been frantic stuff so far, and it shows no signs of relenting as Rob Meir sends it in really wide to turn 1. He's trying to get a smooth run around turns 1 and 2. What a ride that is from Rob Meir to pull alongside Conrad Little as they head into the pits turn once again. Little bobbling on the inside line. Rob Meir's got the clearer run, and it is Rob Meir ahead of the final lap, preferring the wide outside line, who's getting a great ride here in 2nd position. He's not going to be able to catch the race leader. It is going to be Freddie Trott Jr. Back-to-back victories. He came via the Eliminator with a victory in Heat 4. He's going to win semi-final number 1. Shock result of the day so far. Rob Meir gets 2nd position. So both of those two, Freddie Trott Jr. and Rob Meir, will appear on the front row of the grid for the grand final. And in the case of Freddie Trott Jr. in particular, that is a major turn-up. Conrad Little takes 3rd place. He'll be on the 2nd row of the grid for the final alongside Alan Birtwistle. And the last of the automatic transfers is Jake Eadie in 5th. Jack Bell, after going down from the race leading position, is eliminated from semi-final number 1. He has not made it inside the top 11, so doesn't get the opportunity to appear in the last chance qualifier, and that too is a major shock.
Jeffrey Carver Jr., the 11, that is Gary Birtwistle. 1, Toby Hale, that's last year's champ. 7, Neil McQueen. 19.
Well, this second semi-final is certainly going to have to go it some to match the entertainment levels of the first, but a look at the lineup for it, and the cards suggest that this could be another cracker. We've got the top 2 qualifiers here in Greenfield, also winners first time out, Gary Birtwistle, who took Heat 1, and Jeffrey Carver, the winner of Heat 2, going head-to-head for the first time. And throw into the mix the returning comeback man, Toby Hales, who was 2nd in his opening ride. That could very easily have been a first ride win as well. He was just pipped in the run down to the line by Jack Bell in Heat number 3. Behind that pair in Heat 3 was Neil McQueen. He finished 3rd then, and he will complete the front row of the grid. On the 2nd row, both 4th position finishers first time out in the opening 3 races of the day. Charlie Kelly in Heat 1 and Jordan Miller in Heat 2 will line up on the inside of the 2nd row. The remaining 6 riders made it through via the eliminators. Mark Richardson with a victory in Heat number 5. Menno van Meer finished 2nd in Heat number 4, so those two will complete the 2nd row of the grid. And then off the back row, Simon Bird, who was 3rd in Heat 5, 4th position last time out Paul Young. Fergus Bluff was 5th, and Mike Goodfellow will be on the outside of the back row, having squeezed through in 6th position back in Heat 4. Paul Young, the big story with work to do once again from the back row. After his machine failed to start first time out, he had to come from the back row in Heat number 4, managed it nicely. Top 5 the target for him this time around. Again, movement before the lights go out, and Toby Hales with something of a jump start, just as in his previous ride. Is he going to get away with it again? It certainly looks like it. Gary Birtwistle powers around the outside of Jeffrey Carver and down the inside of Toby Hales and sends him out towards the bales on turn number 4. Hales then tumbling backwards, goes from 1st to 3rd in the space of a lap. Carver through into 2nd place. Gary Birtwistle losing his footing there back into turn 1 at the start of lap number 2, but holds on ahead of Jeffrey Carver. Behind that lead trio, it's Neil McQueen in 4th position. Then it's Mark Richardson, who's done well to get clear of Jordan Miller and into 5th. Menno van Meer it is, who sits just outside of those qualification positions at present. He's running the outside line here, coming off turn number 2, and he's going to lose another spot now as Paul Young comes through and into 7th place. Van Meer trying back on the inside, but backs out of it coming off turn number 4. So it's Gary Birtwistle versus Jeffrey Carver up at the head of the field. Behind them it's Toby Hales. Then it's Mark Richardson. Richardson's managed to get through on Neil McQueen, relegating him into the danger zone in 5th position. McQueen must defend that place for automatic transfer now to the grand final. Up at the head of the field, Carver almost alongside Gary Birtwistle coming around turns 1 and 2. Birtwistle holds track position, noses in front, going into the top bend. He'll run wide surely now coming off turn 4. No, manages to hold the racing line quite nicely. Gary Birtwistle versus Jeffrey Carver. Carver with the inside route left open, the door wide open, and Jeffrey Carver slams it shut coming off turn 2 to hit the front on Gary Birtwistle. Great racing for top spot between two previously unbeaten riders, but it's Jeffrey Carver who'll take the second semi-final. Gary Birtwistle will join him on the front row of the grid for the grand final here this afternoon. Toby Hales gets 3rd ahead of Mark Richardson. They'll both transfer on the second row of the grid for the grand final, and Paul Young completes another comeback ride from the back row of the grid. He was able to take 4th in heat number 4. From the back row in the semi-final, he takes a very impressive 5th and will be the last of your automatic transfers to today's grand final. 12th position, Charlie Kelly. Bike didn't get off the line. I think he might have stalled it. Did get back going, but he is the man who brings up the rear, and he is therefore the latest victim of this brutal knockout format here in Greenfield. The penultimate race of the 2022 season is the last chance qualifier. 2 remaining spots up for grabs in today's grand final, and one of the biggest names in this lineup, Neil McQueen, currently 6th in the championship standings. He's been in all but one of the grand finals, the 6 grand finals so far this season, looking to add another here in Greenfield this afternoon. Also in the lineup, Jordan Miller, making his first appearance since the 3rd round of this 2022 campaign. He was a finalist in each of the opening 3 rounds of this season. Those are the 2 favourites. Watch as well for Tim Gregg on the outside of that front row, the World Championship regular, looking for his second final of 2022. He somewhat lucked in last time out in Redcar on his way to 7 championship points. Completing the front row of the grid, Gareth Williamson. He and Jordan Miller finished 6th in their respective semi-finals. Neil McQueen and Tim Gregg 7th, so they're on the outside of the front row. Menno Van Meer, 8th in semi-final 2, goes on the inside of the second row. Watch out as well for the likes of Mike Goodfellow and Fergus Bluff. As we get underway with the last chance qualifier, Gareth Williamson it is with the whole shot, and it's Mike Goodfellow now who from the second row of the grid manages to get around the outside to challenge for the race lead. That really is outstanding. Mike Goodfellow was only on the second row of the grid, having finished 9th in his semi-final race, but he's come through to lead at the end of the opening lap. Jordan Miller bundles down the inside of Gareth Williamson. Second spot, remember, also moves through to today's grand final, so it's hotly contested. Now the race is for 3rd. Neil McQueen trying to get back into the action. Hasn't got off to the best of starts to this race, but with Jordan Miller now defending against Gareth Williamson, there might still be an opportunity for Neil McQueen to bring himself back into contention, and McQueen strikes now, passing 2-in-1 manoeuvre down the back straight, up the inside of Gareth Williamson, and the door was left open by Miller as well, and Jordan Miller has gone from 2nd to 4th. So Jordan Miller, having missed the last 3 rounds of this 2022 campaign, is finding just how tough the action is once again with the DTRA. Menno Van Meer is the next man lining up to try and make some progress, and he too now has picked off Jordan Miller. Miller wide on turn 4, and Tim Gregg has passed a pair of them. So Tim Gregg now up against Menno Van Meer, his World Championship rival. This is 4th position in this race. Remember, riders who finished 3rd, 4th and 5th in the last chance qualifier will score UK Nationals points, and an opportunity for Tim Gregg here to pick up another one. Gareth Williamson going narrow there into turn number 1, covers him off for the moment at least. Gregg now alongside in the race for 3rd place. This is the battle for top spot. Neil McQueen now through on Mike Goodfellow, but Goodfellow can just bring this one home in 2nd position, and that's good enough for him. Side by side as they cross the line for 3rd position. The timing puts Gareth Williamson ahead of Tim Gregg, so 3 championship points for Gareth Williamson, 2 in 4th place for Tim Gregg, and 1 for Menno Van Meer, the wildcard, his 2nd wildcard appearance of the season and his 2nd scoring finish with the DTRA. But it's Neil McQueen and Mike Goodfellow who will march on to the grand final. McQueen victorious in the end after after his last lap pass on the number 81, who makes it through for what's going to be his 5th ride of the day. Certainly the busiest man in attendance here in Greenfield this afternoon. Made it through the eliminators in round 1 and has done so again in round 2.
We're getting all kinds of paperwork thrown at us here. Looks like we're having steam mail.
The last race of the season. It's the grand final here at round 7 of the 2022 DTRA UK Flat Track Nationals. Gary Birtwistle looking to complete a perfect season with a 7th victory in 7 rounds. Jeffrey Carver, the American wildcard, the man most likely to stop him, unbeaten from his 2 qualifying races and first seed to this grand final. He selected gate number 2, the winner of semi-final 2. Second choice of starting position went to Freddie Trott for his superb race victory in semi-final 1. He's gone for the outside gate. Now, he made that starting position work well in heat 4 on his way to a win, looking to perform similar exploits here. Third choice of starting position went to Gary Birtwistle after his defeat at the hands of Jeffrey Carver in semi-final 2. Birtwistle is our most recent winner around the Greenfield Oval. He won ahead of Toby Hales here a year ago. The fourth choice of starting position then on that front row left to Rob Meir, who was second in semi-final 1. He's left with the inside. Second row of the grid will be Alan Birtwistle, twice a winner on the oval here at Greenfield in 2016 and 17. He was 4th in semi-final 1. Toby Hales, 5th seed to this race, 3rd in semi-final 2, goes off gate number 2. Mark Richardson and Conrad Little alongside him. Paul Young once again has got to do it from the back row of the grid. That all stems from problems he hit in his opening ride. Mike Goodfellow, Neil McQueen and Jake Eady completing your 12-rider field. The 7th round of this 2022 campaign gets underway, and it's another jump start from Toby Hales, this time off the middle row, so he's not going to move himself up into those provisional podium positions. It's Jeffrey Carver with the whole shot, and he did it from behind on Gary Birtwistle last time they met in semi-final 2. Can Birtwistle now exact his revenge? It's Carver, the American, who leads it. It's the UK national champion for 2022, Gary Birtwistle, pursuing him closely in 2nd position. Rob Meir holds 3rd, ahead of Toby Hales in 4th position. And Hales well adrift already of Rob Meir, so it doesn't look as though Hales on his comeback ride this afternoon is going to be able to get up and onto the podium. Alan Birtwistle leads a separate group from 5th place down. He's ahead of Conrad Little, who's 6th for now, but with Jake Eady applying the pressure from 7th place, and Paul Young recovering from the back row of the grid is now moving through on the inside of Freddie Trott Jr. And in fact, Jake Eady gets out of shape around turns 1 and 2, so that's another position gained by Paul Young, who's been working his way through from the back of the grid all afternoon. And I would suspect that rider of the day is going to have to go to Paul Young for some outstanding battling performances through the order. He had to go through the eliminator, remember, heat number 4, just to get to the semi-final stages. Off the back row of the grid, came through for 4th. Off the back row of the grid in semi-final 2, managed to get through for a top 5 spot to make his way to this grand final. Back row of the grid once again, and he is continuing to make progress. He's now racing Conrad Little for 6th position. Little closes the door. Jake Eady still in close attendance from 8th place, gets around the outside now of Paul Young coming off turn 4, but Young has the place. So a 3, quite shortly it's going to be a 4-rider battle, because Neil McQueen has joined them, having got through on Freddie Trott Jr. Freddie Trott Jr. has used up all of his magic after victories in heats 4 and the semi-final, first semi-final. And Freddie Trott Jr. beginning to go backwards as Paul Young now moves through on Conrad Little, moves him out of the way coming off turn 2, and there's an opportunity here for Jake Eady to make an extra position. Front wheel almost up on the grass going into that top bend as he tries to get alongside Conrad Little, who closed the door quite firmly. Good ride once again from Conrad Little. Eady's now left the door open and Neil McQueen comes through. So plenty of action right the way through this 12-rider field in the grand final. But up at the head of it, Jeffrey Carver pulling well clear now. Gary Birtwistle stuck with him for the opening laps, but as the race has worn on, Carver has found an extra gear. Remember, he didn't pass Gary Birtwistle until the final lap of that second semi-final. He didn't waltz away in the early laps of his opening ride either. But Jeffrey Carver, the class of this field, is now beginning to carve up the opposition. Second in qualifying, remember, Gary Birtwistle must have fancied his chances coming into this final, but after being beaten by him in semi-final 2, he's going to be beaten by him again in the grand final, and Gary Birtwistle's unbeaten run in 2022 is about to end. Rob Meir sitting in 3rd position. Great to have Rob Meir back with the DTRA for this final round, having been a grand finalist back in round 2 in Peterborough. And this time it's going to be a podium finish for Rob Meir, but he's not going to be able to live with the pace. Jeffrey Carver's got half a lap over the man in third position, Rob Meir, as he slots his way now between Jake Eady and Freddie Trott Jr. And just to teach them how it's done, comes through to lap them by going around the outside of the pair of them. Jeffrey Carver, a showman to the last, is a very popular figure in American flat track, a unique character. And I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of celebration at the end of this race as well. It's going to be his third race victory of the afternoon. And of course, the most important, the grand final, goes to our wildcard Jeffrey Carver, exiting the final turn for the final time. One hand off the bars to celebrate. Jeffrey Carver wins in Greenfield. Gary Birtwistle suffers his first defeat of 2022. It's second over the line for the number 11, soon to be number 1, the UK national champion this season. Rob Meir gets third and return to the podium for the number 500. And I can confirm Toby Hales has been disqualified. Toby Hales disqualified from that grand final as a result of his jump start, so that will give Alan Birtwistle 4th position. Paul Young takes 5th here this afternoon, and that's also good enough for Paul Young to move above Conrad Little in the championship pecking order for 3rd. So your rostrum trio for 2022 with the DTRA will be Gary Birtwistle, Alan Birtwistle and Paul Young. But the final action of the season goes the way of Jeffrey Carver. It's been an entertaining afternoon's flat track, right the way through the field, but also through each of the races. Right from the opening race, actually, we had some spectacular stuff with Gary Birtwistle working his way through from 3rd to 1st. But the only man peerless all day has been Jeffrey Carver, only losing out in qualifying, but he found something extra for that grand final, as all true champions do. Carver, your winner then, ahead of Gary Birtwistle in 2nd and Rob Meir in 3rd. So as Carver plays to the gallery, our final sum-up of the season. Gary Birtwistle's first national title. Alan Birtwistle on electric machinery back onto the championship rostrum in 2nd. Just missed out on the podium today, but he's been remarkably consistent. Veteran Paul Young doing it for the over 50s, taking 3rd overall, while Jack Bell and Charlie Kelly both hit problems in the semi-finals and failed to make the final, so failed to make progress in the championship. Neil McQueen finishes 5th overall, a new personal best ranking for him. That's all from the Greenfield Oval and for 2022. A fitting note on which to finish with the best lineup and probably the best racing of the campaign.